Praise the Lord and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a deeply personal, historical story about doing the exact right thing and having it, well, completely blow up in your face. We're going to get right into this because honestly, this is a situation I think almost all of us can relate to on some level.
Have you ever stepped out on a limb to do the right thing, only to have the situation get exponentially worse? Just really think about it for a second. You follow the rules, you do what your boss or your own conscience asks you to do, and suddenly, you're being punished for it? You end up feeling totally crushed by toxic leadership just for doing exactly what you were supposed to do. It's a terrible, isolating feeling, right? You know you expect a reward for your integrity, and instead, the floor literally falls out from under you.
Well, that is exactly where we find Moses and Aaron in chapter 5 of the book of Exodus. And this brilliantly illustrates that awful feeling of hitting a brick wall. They march right up to Pharaoh, the absolute monarch, the most powerful man in the world at that time, and they deliver this brave, direct request from God: let my people go. They were stepping out in faith, following the command they received. Honestly, they were probably expecting at least a negotiation, right? Or maybe even immediate success. Instead, Pharaoh shuts them down completely. He basically says, I don't know your God, and no way, I am not letting anyone go. But he doesn't just say no, he decides to make them pay for even asking.
Pharaoh's reaction is swift, and it's cruel retaliation. The past reality for the Israelites was already brutal enough. They had this massive daily quota of bricks to make. But at least the straw, which was an absolutely crucial binding ingredient to hold the mud together, well, that was provided for them. The new reality? Pharaoh commands that they have to go scavenge for stubble themselves, but, and here's the real kicker, they are expected to produce the exact same quota of bricks. Now, what's really interesting about this is how relatable it is to modern organizational dynamics. Imagine a modern boss slashing your department's budget by 50%, firing half your team, but demanding the exact same sales numbers by the end of the quarter. Or imagine being a baker, forced to bake a massive 5-tier wedding cake, but your manager literally locks up all the flour. It is a completely impossible demand, deliberately designed to crush their spirits and keep them way too busy to even think about freedom.
When we look at the historical text, we see exactly how this plays out on the ground. It says, so the people were scattered throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. Just picture the absolute chaos. The taskmasters were urgent, just screaming at them, complete your work, your daily task each day, as when there was straw. The pace of their lives suddenly shifts into a frantic, unwinnable overdrive. They are running everywhere across the country, desperately grabbing whatever loose stubble they can find in the dirt, all while the clock loudly ticks down on an impossible daily quota. It's an environment of pure manufactured panic.
And here is where we really start to see the painful reality of the trickle-down effect in any toxic organization. When impossible demands aren't met, somebody lower on the ladder has to pay the price. The Israelite foremen, who basically act as middle management between the Egyptian taskmasters and the Israelite workers, are physically beaten. So these battered foremen desperately go to Pharaoh. They plead for fairness in a totally rigged system. They ask, why do you treat your servants like this? No straw is given, yet they say make bricks. They are just hoping for reason. They assume, maybe Pharaoh is a rational leader who just doesn't understand the physical impossibility of what is happening on the ground.
But here is Pharaoh's response. You are idle, you are idle. It is profoundly absurd. He accuses a completely overworked, enslaved, and physically beaten people of having too much free time. This brilliantly illustrates exactly how toxic abusers and bad leaders operate. They gaslight their victims. Pharaoh totally flips the script to make the Israelites believe this impossible demand is entirely their own fault. He tells them basically, look, if you have time to ask for a few days off to worship your God, you obviously aren't working hard enough in the first place. It's a classic manipulation tactic, used to deflect blame, confuse the victims, and completely break their resolve from the inside out.
So, the foremen leave Pharaoh's presence, realizing they are in deep, deep trouble. The quota stands. The beatings are going to continue. And who do they run into as they leave the palace? Moses and Aaron. And this builds into an emotionally devastating moment. The foremen turn all their pain, fear, and anger directly onto Moses. They say, you have made us stink in the sight of Pharaoh. Moses stepped out on a limb to help them, to liberate them, to follow God's call, and instead, the very people he is trying to save completely turn against him. It makes this a deeply relatable story. Have you ever tried to advocate for someone or tried to fix a broken system at work or in your family, only to have the people you were trying to help turn on you the second things got bumpy? It is a crushing feeling of pure betrayal. Moses is left standing there entirely alone.
So, what do we actually do when we find ourselves in these types of situations? Let's extract 3 actionable steps from this text for our daily application. First, recognize unreasonable demands for exactly what they are. Don't let a toxic leader gaslight you into thinking you just aren't working hard enough when they've intentionally hidden the straw, so to speak. See the manipulation for what it is. Second, communicate issues directly. Just like the foreman tried to address the issue, document and communicate the impossible reality of the situation to those in charge. You have to put the truth on the record. And third, when human authorities fail you and systems remain broken, take your frustrations to a higher authority, which, as it turns out, is exactly what Moses is forced to do next.
There is a really profound personal and spiritual application here, and it's this: God won't leave you in the dark places. Moses is at absolute rock bottom right now. The situation is objectively way worse than when he started, but the absolutely crucial point is that being trapped in an impossible scenario doesn't mean you are abandoned permanently. The story of Exodus doesn't end in chapter 5. The struggle, the worsening of circumstances, is very often just the setup for the actual deliverance. Even when you are backed into a corner with literally zero resources and an impossible quota staring you right in the face, there is hope that the situation isn't the final chapter of your story.
But you have to remember, Moses doesn't know the ending yet. He only knows the present pain and the sting of betrayal. So he follows that third step we talked about. He turns to God, his higher authority, and asks the hardest question. "O Lord, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you ever send me?" It's a moment of total, unfiltered, raw honesty. He doesn't sugarcoat his pain at all. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder. How do you handle the darkest, most raw why moments in your own faith journey? When doing the right thing goes completely wrong, where do you turn your frustration? It's a heavy question for sure, but one we all have to face when the straw is taken away. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you found this helpful and want to explore more deep dives like this, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.